Number 1. When you're angry. Anger is one of the few moments in a man's life where he meets the edge of himself, where his identity is tested, not by others, but by his own impulses. You feel it rise, that raw, burning surge in your chest when someone violates your boundaries, when disrespect lands without warning, when life throws something unfair straight at your face and dares you to stay composed. And in that moment, you feel like you need to speak, to fight, to defend your name. But pause, because what you say in that state, when your pride is bleeding and your instincts are roaring, is often what destroys what you've worked years to build. It's not because your rage isn't justified, it's because what you say under that weight will not be remembered the way you intended. Words spoken in that state are not heard as strength. They're catalogued as instability. You might think it's power to raise your voice, to clap back, to let someone know they crossed a line. But what you're doing is giving them your control. You're stepping into their chaos. And once you do that, you lose. They own your reaction. They shape the narrative. And they get to say, "See, that's who he really is." But you know who you really are. You are the one who knows exactly what he could do, but doesn't. You are the one who walks away with his name intact. Because if you react every time someone pushes you, you've made yourself public property. Anyone can push a button and get a show. That's not manhood. That's slavery to emotion. And maybe no one told you this growing up, but you need to hear it now. Discipline doesn't just show up in your habits. It shows up in your heat. The way you carry yourself when you feel like exploding is what defines your legacy. Do you burn bridges with your words? Do you wound people who may never recover from what you say? Or do you channel that energy inward, master it, and walk away having won without even lifting your voice? Because the real war isn't with the people who disrespect you. The real war is with the part of you that still thinks responding emotionally is what makes you strong. It's not. Strength is being able to contain the most explosive parts of yourself without leaking them onto everyone around you. It's keeping your edge sharp but sheathed. It's knowing you could destroy but choosing to rise. And when you master that, you become a presence. People feel the weight of what you don't say. They start to second-guess their actions, not because you corrected them, but because you didn't. Your restraint becomes the standard. Your calm becomes the consequence. And that right there, that's what creates influence. So the next time rage grips you, and you're standing in front of someone who's trying to provoke you, don't think about the satisfaction of the moment. Think about the consequences of your words. Think about the people watching who are learning what it means to be a man. Think about the future you who has to carry the fallout of what you're about to say, and choose to hold the line, not for them, for yourself. Because one of the most powerful things you'll ever do is walk away with your peace still intact, your values untouched, and your reputation rising instead of recovering. Number 2. When surrounded by drama. There's a specific kind of chaos that's become normal in the world you live in. Emotional messes, attention-hungry arguments, exaggerations disguised as connection. And as a man, you're often dragged into it. Not because you want to be, but because the people around you mistake your stillness for permission, your presence for participation. You walk into a room, and before you've even spoken, someone's unloading gossip, criticizing someone else, venting anger that doesn't belong to you. And this is where most men get compromised, not because they agree, but because they engage. One sentence, one nod, one misplaced expression, and suddenly you're entangled in a storyline that doesn't reflect your values. You become a character in someone else's dysfunction. And if you're not careful, you start to adopt that energy yourself. You start speaking like them, reacting like them, operating from the same low vibrations that keep them stuck in cycles. But you weren't born to be a sponge for other people's messes. You're not here to carry the weight of stories that aren't yours. And every time you allow yourself to be sucked into that chaos, you step further away from your clarity, your direction, your mission. Because drama is a thief. It doesn't just steal your time, it steals your focus, your composure, your ability to act from your highest self. And here's the twist. Most of the people who bring drama into your life don't even know they're doing it. They're addicted to the emotion. They need the reaction. They feed off the performance. And when they find someone who listens, who reacts, who takes the bait, they hold on to him like an emotional lifeline. But you're not a lifeline. You're a man with purpose. And if that purpose matters, then it's your job to protect it. Not with rage, not with lectures, but with precision. You don't need to fight every battle. You don't need to correct every wrong. You don't even need to defend yourself from accusations rooted in insecurity. You need to disengage. You need to become untouchable in the face of chaos. When they start spinning stories, you stay rooted. When they throw emotional bait, you stay centered. When they demand your reaction, you give them presence instead. Because there's a strength in knowing who you are so clearly that no one else can write your role for you. And over time, you'll notice something powerful. The people who thrive on drama will begin to pull away. Not because you pushed them, but because your peace exposed their patterns. And the ones who remain, they'll start matching your tone. Your presence becomes the reset. Your clarity becomes contagious. You start influencing your environment without speaking. And the ripple effect? It's massive. Because men who can resist chaos don't just change their lives, they shift the culture around them. They raise the bar for what's acceptable. They model what emotional maturity looks like. They show what it means to have boundaries that don't need to be screamed to be respected. And that's when you begin to stand out, not for what you oppose, but for what you represent. So next time you feel the pull into drama, stop and ask, is this battle worth my energy? Is this story mine to tell? Is this moment aligned with the man I'm becoming? And if the answer is no, don't explain, don't argue, don't justify, just hold your ground. The men who last, who lead, aren't the ones constantly reacting to noise. They're the ones building something too sacred to be disrupted by it. Number 3, when your enemies expect a reaction, there's a special kind of warfare that happens in everyday life. It's not loud, it's not physical, but it's real. And it happens in moments when people test your edges, hoping to unravel the man you say you are. It's subtle, passive comments, disguised insults, underhanded moves done with a smile, questions designed not to seek truth, but to provoke discomfort. These aren't accidents. These are calculated. And when you live with clarity, when you grow, when you begin to evolve into someone who is harder to manipulate, you'll become a target. Not for what you've done wrong, but for what you've outgrown. And the most dangerous trap they'll set for you is the one that looks like conversation. The casual disrespect wrapped in humor. The public challenge masked as curiosity. The soft comparison that implies you haven't done enough. It's bait. Bait designed to drag you back down to the emotional level you fought so hard to rise above. Because the truth is, once you've elevated, once you've outpaced people emotionally, professionally, spiritually, they no longer want your presence. They want your reaction. Why? Because reacting means you're still reachable. It means you still care what they think. It means they can still shift your energy. And the moment you let them in, even for a second, you've given them what they came for, access to your direction. And most men don't see this. They think defending themselves means power. They think proving a point means they've won. But here's the truth. You've got to internalize. Men who live with purpose don't explain themselves to spectators. You are not obligated to dismantle every false story told about you. You don't need to clarify your growth to people who are committed to misunderstanding you. When someone lies on your name, let them. When someone distorts your actions, let them. When someone calls you out hoping you'll slip, stand your ground, but don't descend to their level. Because when you do, you validate their game. You enter their arena, and that arena was never built for your victory. You want to know real strength? It's when they're watching you, testing you, setting up the perfect stage for your emotional collapse, and you stand unmoved. Not because you don't feel, but because you've already decided who you are. And who you are doesn't need to prove anything. In fact, that's where your reputation becomes bulletproof. Not in the words you say, but in the discipline you live. And the more you train this, the more powerful you become. You'll stop fearing accusations. You'll stop needing to defend every decision. You'll begin to embody something that weak men can't even understand. Control. Not the kind that dominates others, but the kind that dominates self. And when that becomes your new normal, something incredible happens. People stop poking you, not because they've changed, but because your presence has changed the rules. They'll learn that throwing shots gets no echo, that disrespecting you doesn't earn a show. And the ones who don't get the message, they fall off. They expose themselves. Because when you're unshakable, people reveal their intentions quickly. And that's the beauty of this power. When you refuse to react, you don't just protect your path, you reveal the truth about who's walking beside you. So don't chase the last word. Don't argue with noise. Don't fight for clarity in rooms that can't hold your vision. Fight for peace. Fight for your purpose. Fight for the ability to walk into any room knowing you owe no one your anger, your explanation, or your energy. Because when your enemies expect a reaction and get none, they don't just lose, they disarm themselves. They stare into a reflection of everything they wish they could be: steady, grounded, free. Number 4. When you're winning. Victory has a strange way of making you forget the very discipline that got you here. When you were down, you were focused. You moved with precision. You kept your mouth shut and your eyes on the goal. But now that you're climbing, now that the doors are opening and the people are noticing, it's tempting to change the rhythm, to show a little more, to share what you've been through, to explain why you deserve it. And that's exactly where most men get caught. Because the second you start narrating your rise, you start attracting attention that has nothing to do with support and everything to do with disruption. You'll notice it. The passive envy, the sudden coldness from people who used to cheer, the fake support from those who think they can use your light to shine their own shadows. You'll start feeling the pressure to keep achieving just to maintain their interest. And before long, you're not building for you anymore. You're building to stay relevant. And that's the trap. That's when you start leaking your vision. You start leaking your discipline. You start making moves for appearance instead of alignment. But the men who finish what they start, the men who leave a legacy, they understand something simple and powerful. What's sacred must be guarded, not hidden in fear, guarded in strength. Because when you win and you share too soon, you open the door for interpretation. And people love to twist what they don't understand. You talk about your success, and they question your methods. You mention your income, and they question your ethics. You share your peace, and they accuse you of arrogance. Why? Because most people don't want truth. They want confirmation for their own limitations. And when your life disproves that, it makes them uncomfortable. So if you're serious about protecting what you've built, stop explaining your wins. Stop inviting everyone to see the masterpiece while you're still painting it. Let them see the results when it's done, not while it's vulnerable. Because elevation is fragile, and not everyone deserves access to it. Share it with those who built beside you, not those who just arrived for the celebration. Keep your momentum away from applause. Build in shadows. Move with consistency. You don't need to prove anything to anyone. The work you're doing will speak. The results will echo. The shift in your presence will communicate what words never could. And if they don't get it, let them stay confused. Confusion is a tax they pay for not doing the work themselves. But you're not confused. You're clear. You're focused. You know that true growth is invisible for a long time. It doesn't need validation. It doesn't crave recognition. It requires loyalty to the process, to the mission, to the man you said you would become. And when you keep showing up like that every single day without needing to be seen or celebrated, you begin to build something that no man can fake, something rooted, something immovable, something that no insult, no setback, no cheap opinion can shake. Because it wasn't built for them. It was built for purpose. And that purpose doesn't need an audience. It needs a soldier. So the next time you feel the urge to share what you're building, stop and ask, is this about the mission or the moment? And if it's the moment, walk away. Let them talk. Let them wonder. Let them guess. And then, when it's time, let your life do the talking. Number 5. When you're listening to learn. You were never taught this in school, and maybe no man around you ever showed it clearly. But learning isn't just about hearing facts. It's not about nodding along to lectures or collecting quotes from books. Real learning, deep, transformative growth, requires you to shut down everything that tells you to impress, to interrupt, to prove how much you already know. Because the moment you start proving, you stop absorbing. And in today's world, men have been trained to talk their way through every opportunity. You feel like if you don't speak, people will think you're not sharp, not educated, not engaged. You sit in rooms full of ideas, and you're tempted to comment on every sentence, insert your take, spin your own version. And every time you do that, you rob yourself of the most valuable thing you came for, depth. Because it's not the obvious lines that change you, it's the nuance, the in-between, the moment you finally understand, not just what's being said, but why it matters. And you'll never reach that if your ego is busy decorating your image while your soul remains underdeveloped. So what do? You go quiet. Not because you're afraid, but because you're focused. You start showing up not as someone who needs to be seen, but as someone who came to extract value. You stop nodding to seem agreeable and start noticing what people aren't saying, the pauses, the inconsistencies, the buried truths. You listen for the things underneath the words, and the longer you do it, the sharper you get. You start connecting dots that others miss. You begin to understand patterns of people, decisions, power. You learn how they think, not just what they say. And that's where real power is. Not in the knowledge you collect, but in how you've trained your mind to perceive. But to get there, you need discipline. You need to let go of the urge to interrupt wisdom just to display intellect. You need to walk into every room, every conversation, every opportunity with one question. What can I learn that no one else here is paying attention to? And the answer won't be handed to you. It'll reveal itself when you stop performing and start perceiving. Because the greatest men in history were not just good at speaking. They were masters of attention. They studied environments. They watched people's intentions unfold over time. They knew that most mistakes aren't made because men are stupid. They're made because men don't know how to listen deeply. So if you want to evolve, stop chasing information. Start developing awareness. Stop reading just to say you read. Start reading to change the way you walk into a room. Let every conversation refine you. Let every story told in your presence build you. And when people speak nonsense, let it pass. You're not here to debate. You're here to extract wisdom and move forward. And here's the reward. The man who listens with intent becomes the man everyone eventually listens to, not because he demanded it, but because every word he speaks carries the weight of everything he took the time to understand first. Number 6. When people disrespect you. Disrespect is one of the hardest pills to swallow as a man, not because you're weak, but because it cuts at the very root of what you value. Your presence, your effort, your identity. It's not just the words they use, it's how they say them. The smirk, the tone, the timing. It's the way they disregard your time, interrupt your thoughts, dismiss your input, twist your intention. And it's tempting, so tempting, to meet it head on, to call it out instantly, to raise your voice, set them straight, reclaim your space in that exact moment. But here's the reality. The moment you give in to that urge, you've made it about them. You've surrendered your day, your energy, your position, just to remind someone what they should already know. And that's not power. That's reactivity. You were not built to chase people down to recognize your value. You were built to walk in it, regardless of who's watching. And when someone disrespects you, you don't prove yourself, you prove your frame. And your frame says, I don't lose composure for people who have already lost their place. That's not arrogance, that's alignment. Because what most men don't realize is that disrespect isn't always loud, it's subtle. It shows up in sarcasm, in condescending advice, in fake support, in the people who say, you've changed, when what they mean is, you're no longer easy to manipulate. And your response, it isn't to argue, it's to document, not with words, but with your choices. You notice who shows up empty-handed to your milestones. You remember who only calls when they need you. You see who talks behind your back the second you're not around. And instead of confronting it, you adjust your access. You don't explain it, you enforce it. And over time, you develop an unshakable filter. The kind of discernment that protects your life from small-minded people who can't handle your growth. But that only comes when you stop needing validation from those who already showed you they don't respect what you're building. Because here's the deeper truth. If someone disrespects you once, that's information. If they do it twice, that's a decision. If they keep doing it, and you keep letting it slide, that's not on them anymore, it's on you. You've taught them how to treat you. And changing that lesson isn't about confrontation, it's about clarity. You change the lesson by changing your boundaries, by speaking with your absence, by walking into new rooms that value your presence the moment you arrive. And the result? Your peace increases, your confidence deepens. You stop explaining your value and start embodying it. You start attracting people who don't need to be taught how to treat you because they already operate at your level. That's how you move. You don't try to be understood by people who are committed to misunderstanding you. You don't beg for decency from people who only know control. You rise, and you keep rising until the air is so clean that disrespect can't breathe where you walk. That's what it means to be a man with self-respect. You don't demand it, you demonstrate it. Number 7, when you're being judged, you're going to be misread. No matter how disciplined you are, no matter how intentional your actions become, people will project their fears, wounds, and insecurities onto you and call it truth. Some will call you arrogant because you no longer tolerate chaos. Some will call you cold because you're no longer accessible. Some will call you selfish because you finally started protecting your peace. And the most dangerous thing you could do in that moment is to stop, turn around, and explain yourself to people who never took the time to understand you in the first place. Because explaining yourself to people who've already decided what they believe about you is not clarity, it's compromise. You don't owe your process to people who only see the surface. Let them think what they want. You're not here to babysit their assumptions. You're not here to soften your truth so they can digest it comfortably. You're not a prisoner to their narrative, and the faster you realize this, the freer you become. Because men who chase approval become shadows of themselves, morphing, shrinking, reshaping their voice to match every room they walk into. That's not strength, that's surrender, and it leaves you hollow. But the man who stands rooted in who he is, without defending, without over-explaining, without reshaping his identity for easier consumption, that man becomes a mountain in a world full of sand. It doesn't mean you never grow, never reflect, never self-correct. Growth is non-negotiable. But growth is not about apology, it's about alignment. You evolve not to please them, but to become the man you know you were meant to be. And anyone who misreads that isn't your concern, they're your contrast. So let the whispers come, let the comments fly, let them write you off, twist your decisions, question your intentions. If they judge your boundaries, it's because they benefit from your lack of them. If they mock your discipline, it's because they fear their own lack of it. If they try to shame your focus, it's because they've drowned in distraction. Don't let the noise distort your inner compass. Stay anchored, keep building, keep refining. Because the man who's truly grounded doesn't flinch under judgment. He uses it as fuel. And the longer you walk this path, the more you'll notice something profound. Real ones don't need explanations. They feel your intent. They sense your clarity. And the people who matter most won't ask you to dilute yourself to be understood. They'll rise to meet your frequency. So when you're judged, don't flinch, don't adjust, don't overextend. Stand tall in your truth, not to prove, but to live. Because the most powerful statement you can make isn't spoken, it's embodied. Number 8. When speaking reveals your plans, there's something sacred about what you're building, even if no one sees it yet. You've been quietly shifting, restructuring the way you think, the way you move, the way you show up in the world. You've been gathering information, shedding old patterns, making silent vows in the early morning hours that you'll never return to who you used to be. And naturally, as that vision forms, there's a hunger to share it. You want to tell someone. You want to describe it in detail, to express the changes that feel so real, they're almost alive inside you. But here's what you need to understand. Every time you speak a plan prematurely, you dilute its strength. Because words are not neutral, they carry energy. And when you give that energy to people who haven't earned the right to hold it, they mishandle it. They offer unasked for opinions. They question your timing. They inject their own doubt, their own fear, their own wounds into something they were never meant to touch. And you walk away from those conversations, not with more clarity, but with a heaviness you didn't have before. Suddenly you're second-guessing. Suddenly your vision doesn't feel as sharp. Not because it was wrong, but because you let someone without vision speak into yours. And that's the danger. Not that they'll stop you, but that you'll start to hesitate. And hesitation is where momentum goes to die. So if you truly believe in what you're building, if this next move, this shift, this reinvention is something you know in your bones is necessary, then guard it. Don't explain it. Don't seek validation for it. Don't expose it to minds that can't comprehend it. Let it gestate in silence. Let it grow in the dark, away from the reach of doubt. You don't need to tell them what you're going to do. You need to become it. Walk different. Think sharper. Make choices that align with the man you're becoming, not the man they remember. Let the transformation be so thorough, so undeniable, that they don't recognize you when you return. That's how legacy is built. Not with declarations, but with decisions. And once you start living this way, something changes. You stop chasing applause. You stop announcing every pivot. You become a force, not a headline. Because the men who create impact aren't the ones always talking about what's next. They're the ones who move like it's already done. And that's the level you must get to. The level where you no longer narrate the journey, you live it. Where your actions replace your promises. Where your presence communicates your evolution more clearly than any post, speech, or meeting ever could. And the people who watch from the sidelines, let them. They'll see soon enough. And when they do, let them be stunned. Not because you told them, but because you showed them. That's power. That's protection. That's how you carry vision in a world that tries to tear it down before it takes root. You've made it this far, so ask yourself, why are you still trying to guess your way through life, relationships, conflict, and power when the blueprint already exists? How much longer are you willing to be misunderstood, to get tested publicly and crumble, to keep losing women, deals, and respect because you haven't mastered your energy? What would change if you actually had the clarity, calm, and strategy of the men you respect most? That's exactly why I wrote The Stoic Relationship Blueprint for Men. It's not just another book. It's the most powerful guide ever created for men who are done playing small, done reacting, and ready to take full command over their world. We're only making it available to a limited number of men, because this isn't for the masses. It's for those ready to act, not just scroll. We're capping sales so we can preserve the power of this knowledge before it gets watered down by those who aren't ready. If you're serious, if you felt something shift while watching this, click the link in the comments right now. Every second you hesitate is another day living beneath who you were meant to be.